I will not let my daughter move in with me. I mean, I'm going to think about it, I'll think it over, but it's just bad for my mental health. I can't deal with her, and, well, I'm at my wit's end. I'm 56. I have a 24-year-old daughter, Mandy. We aren't close, and we rarely speak to each other. It's usually just a short text on birthdays or Christmas. Casual communications like that. It doesn't make me sound like a very good mother, but honestly, I'm not too fussed about talking to my daughter any more than that. Don't get me wrong. I do love my daughter. She's my only child, and I'll always have a love for her. But she's grown up into a very difficult person. When she was a baby, her father and I had a very messy divorce. Mandy has always blamed me for the lack of father figures in her life. When she was younger, I just allowed her to continue to hate me. I felt like it was a mother's duty to just put up with whatever your child throws at you. When she turned 18, however, I told her the truth about why her father and I got a divorce. He was an absolute junkie and abusive, who cheated constantly and liked to hit me once he had a few drinks in him. Well, this news did not have the effect that I thought it would. My daughter just flat out did not believe me. She thought that I was lying just to make her like me more. Obviously, this is ridiculous. She thinks that I would play the victim to curry her favor. And it hurts that she sees me this way, but on the other hand, she's never been very bright. She takes after her father in that sense. Though our relationship was always strained, this was the proverbial nail in the coffin that made me stop trying to connect with her. I never saw any point in trying to be close with someone who actively disliked me, and both of us seemed happier afterward anyways. Our relationship was continuing in this vein for the past 6 years now. When she was 20, Mandy reconnected with her father, who spun some wild tale about me forcing him to stop seeing her, and she actually believed him. And we haven't seen each other very much since. She would not believe me even if I told her that I was the one fighting for his visitation rights, and that he was much happier going on benders with his little girlfriend than he would have been playing father. I do admit I still hold some residual bitterness towards my daughter for choosing her father over me. I don't think it's fair that I'm the one who raised her, fed her, helped her with her homework, and did everything for her, but that man is the one she calls when she needs help. Well, yesterday I got a call from my daughter, which was very unusual. So obviously I was on alert immediately. I thought that I was going to have to pick her up at the hospital or something, or have to go identify her body. I was relieved when it was really her voice on the phone. Even though she sounds like she would rather be speaking to anyone but me, I could tell that she was trying to sound chirpy, trying to mask the fact that she didn't really want to be speaking with me. That's when I realized that she must be wanting something from me. See, my daughter doesn't call unless she needs money. Ever. She moved out of my house as soon as she hit 18, and has been providing for herself since. I wasn't the one who kicked her out. I would have rather she lived with me until she found a job at least. But the week after her 18th birthday, she was already sleeping on a friend's couch while she looked for apartments. She's always been very self-sufficient, but occasionally, once in a blue moon, I get a call from her. Her voice will be all soft and mellow, and she talks like a baby when she does it. I think she's trying to appeal to my motherly instincts, but the reason is always the same. She needs money. It's been happening more and more recently, which I should probably be worried about, to be honest, but I'm really trying to divorce myself from worrying about her life. It was her choice to leave home, and no amount of my sitting at home worrying will make her want to be a mother. That's what I thought anyways. Well, turns out I was wrong because my lovely daughter has just been told that she's going to be evicted from her apartment. Apparently, the landlord wants to sell, and she has 3 weeks to vacate the premises, or the cops will be called. I doubt this is the first that she's heard of her eviction. 3 weeks is not very much notice, and I doubt any respectable landlord would give their tenant such a short amount of notice. What I suspected happened is her landlord told her months ago that she would have to vacate the premises by a certain date, and my daughter, who had everything possible handed to her by her mother, assumed that something new would fall into her lap. And when it did not, I suspected she exhausted every other avenue possible before she called me for help. I'm under no illusions. I spoiled my daughter beyond repair in an attempt to make up for her not having a father. I tried to buy her love and acceptance, and now she's a spoiled brat who doesn't accept anything or appreciate anything that I did for her. She was 15. I took on a second job that I could buy her a car for her 16th birthday. Well, was she grateful? Of course not. She wasn't. It was the wrong year model car. And the gas was too expensive. Every excuse this child could use to let me know that I wasn't doing a good enough job as her mother. You best believe she would take it. So, I was expecting her to ask for money. I thought she was going to ask me for the foot of the deposit of her new apartment, imagining how surprised I was when she asked if she could move back home. Temporarily, of course. She made sure that I knew that. Even though she was asking for a favor, she had to dig the knife in a little and let me know that she would be out of my house as soon as she possibly could. I know she was expecting me to just say yes, shout it from the rooftops, yes, move back home. And I know that any other mother would, but I did not. I told her that I would think about it and that I would call her back once I've made my decision. She starts stuttering and stammering. I think the shock that she wasn't immediately going to get her own ways struck her dumb for a minute. And I'll admit that I got no small amount of satisfaction from that. The issue is this. I don't want her here. My memories of my daughter in this house are full of screaming at me, slamming doors, and telling me with no uncertainty that she'll never be coming back. From the minute she could walk and talk, this child hated my guts. I spent a long time trying to reckon with that, and even longer trying to earn back her love and respect. I've only recently really come to realize that I did nothing wrong in our relationship, and I know that allowing her back into my house would only cause me to regress. So, I recently changed jobs as well, to something a little less hectic. It pays less than my previous position, but it's closer to home, and I'm not on my feet quite as much. It was a necessary change, as I've been struggling with weakness as I get older. I have no illusions that my daughter moving back in with me would be nothing short of a rewinding of time. She would not even consider paying me rent. I'd be paying for groceries, her water, electricity use. Everything, of course, would be on my dime and nickel. Heck, she'd probably expect me to start giving her allowance again. I know that if I asked her to pay for the house, then it would just affirm in her mind that I'm a terrible mother who doesn't care about her the slightest. It's not my job to change her mind on that. I tried for 18 darn years to prove to this girl that I loved her, and she threw it back in my face. I've spent 24 years of my life feeling inadequate because I couldn't make my own child love me. It's taken me a long time to break that pattern of thinking, and her moving back in here would only send me right back to where I started. On top of that, I just cannot handle the kind of atmosphere I know her stay would bring into my home. In my younger years, I was well up for the screaming matches and the slamming of the doors. However, I'm old now. I like my home to be peaceful and quiet. I didn't even get a new dog when mine died last year because I knew that I'd be happier without all the barking. I don't know if my heart can take the animosity, even if she only stayed for a few days or a week. Well, she called me yesterday, and I know that I was her last option, surely. Well, there's no way she would have called me if she had any other choice. So she's probably waiting by the phone anxiously, waiting for me to call her and tell her she could come back with open arms. When she called me first, she probably expected me to jump at the opportunity to mother her, wrap her up in a warm blanket, and try to prove myself to her. It was probably a bad shock for her when I said that I need time to think about it. I need to make my decision quickly. She only has 3 weeks left before she's essentially homeless at this point. I feel guilty about it, but I'm probably going to say no. Well, it might make me a terrible mother, but I can't bring myself to let that child back into my home. Not after all the ways that she's hurt me. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. This story has multiple updates, and guys, things are about to get a little wild. Everybody was surprised to see this post with so many responses. The comment section was blowing up. But let's go ahead and jump into update 1 and see exactly what's going down. Hello, everyone. I was very surprised to see that this post, it got so many responses in such a short time. I just want to thank everyone who was kind. Some people were rather cruel and told me I was in fact a bad mother, and a terrible person to boot, but I did expect that kind of response, so it didn't hurt too badly. It was only yesterday that I posted that update, and straight after I hit post, I called my daughter back and told her that I would not be allowing her to move back in with me. She was shocked. I don't think that I've ever heard that girl speechless before. But there's a first time for everything, I assume, and I was calm and firm. I told her that I could not allow her to stay with me as I simply could not afford it. And her treatment of me, well, it'd be bad for my health. I think I accidentally made it seem like I was weak and ailing, without even meaning to, but I don't mind. She was quiet for a long time on the phone, and I thought that she had hung up on me, but then she just asked very quietly, "Why?" Well, this almost broke my heart. It wasn't the fake baby voice she uses when she needs something from me. It was real, sad, childlike voice. My resolve almost broke right there and then, but I decided to be honest with her, something I've never really been before. I told her that the way she's treated me her entire life has broken me in ways I simply can't explain. I told her that I spent my entire life trying to love and take care of her, and that she threw it in my face any way that she could. I told her about how bad that I had the blisters on my feet for months when I took that second job to pay for her car, and then she'd throw it back at me and had broken my heart just like that. I told her that the way she took her father's side when she didn't even know him, when I'd explained the way he used to hit me, had broken my heart in ways I would not be able to describe. I've never been so achingly honest with my daughter before. I always felt like it was a mother's job to stay strong for her kids and to never let them know that they've hurt you. I felt like it was our job to just take whatever our kids threw at us right on the chin and to continue to support and nurture them. That isn't true, though. Family is not a one-way street. Sure, when she was a child, it was my job to love and protect her no matter what she threw at me. But she isn't a child anymore. She's a grown woman, and I deserve her respect. She doesn't have to love me, and, well, she doesn't have to like me, but she will respect me. And if I continue to let her rule my life without standing up for myself, she never will. I said all this, and it was so hard to get the words out without starting to cry. I had tears in my eyes and a lump in my throat, but I held on. I know it isn't fair to make the comparison, but it felt like I was standing up to my husband again. It just felt like the time I told him that if he hit me once more, I'd leave him and take Mandy with me. That's probably more to do with my damage, though, than it has to do with her. So, I didn't say that. Again, she was quiet for a long time, and when I looked at the phone, she really hung up this time. I feel guiltier than I've ever in my life. I've talked to my sister about this, and she said that I owe it to myself to put myself first. And on some level, I know she's right, but on another level, I just feel like I've let my daughter down in a way that I never have before. It's taking all my might to not pick that phone up and tell her to pack her bags. Tell her that she's coming to stay with me. I'm going to stay strong, though, and put myself first, the way I never have before. Update number 2. I think that was rather easier said than done. I last posted about a week ago, and ever since I have, everything's been absolutely bombarding me with messages, both from kind people on here who believe that they have the right answer to my predicament, and from my daughter, who's determined to change my mind on the letting her live with me in my front. You people must have been very kind, and I do appreciate that. There's been a lot of support for me in my replies to the original post, and a lot of you seem to identify with my problem. It seems there's a lot of mothers out there who have been treated badly by their daughters at some point or the other. It's not an original experience. My own daughter is pretty much following the given script of a child whose mother has told them no for the first time. She's tried every possible solution that she can come up with, as far as I can tell. She sent pleading text every minute for hours on end, and she's called and called and called and called some more. I woke up the other day to 57 missed calls, and even more text messages. When it was clear that those methods weren't going to make me suddenly change my mind, she starts trying to emotionally blackmail me. That's right. She even starts sending me news articles about homelessness and all the dangers of young females that they can face on the streets. I imagine that she was indeed quite put out when none of that worked. And so she finally settled on the universal method of daughters, the silent treatment. For 4 days, my phone's been completely silent apart from a few emails. She seems to think that if she doesn't contact me for long enough, I'll go out of my mind with worry, and I will invite her back as home just as quickly as possible. I don't think she's realized that the silent treatment is really just a blissful break from the constant attack of her mom shaming. When she isn't texting me and calling me nonstop, I don't think about her very often, to tell you the truth. Her main tactic in trying to get me to do what she wants is guilting. It always has been. Ever since she was a young girl, she would use my fear that I wasn't doing enough, and she would twist it and turn it against me to get her own way. I did expect this, honestly, when I was planning on saying no to her. I knew that she wasn't going to take my answer with dignity or grace, so I was prepared to stand firm against her baiting. It used to wear me down terribly in the past. Every time she would start up this little show, I would want to run to her side and hold her hands, and promise her that I was going to be a better mother and that I would make her proud. I don't feel that this time. All I fear is anger and a little bit of self-pity. The pity is what I'm grappling with the most. I wish I didn't pity her, and it would make ignoring her telepathic waves of emotional blackmail a heck of a lot easier to deal with and to ignore. The anger is much more understandable. A lot of you guys have been commenting on the way I talk about my daughter and the way I simply describe her. I need to make it clear that the way I talk about her is exactly the way she deserves to be talked about. Some people have become rather Freudian in the replies to my original post and think that the reason she's turned out that this little spoiled brat is a direct consequence of the way that I talked about her. I need to let you know that a few years ago, the way I would describe my daughter would be a heck of a lot different than what it is today. Yeah, and you know what else? You would have thought that she hung the stars by the way I described her. It's taken a lot of therapy and, well, simply a lot of years for me to finally be honest and say that while I do love her, I don't like my daughter. She's not kind, not generous, and she's definitely not considerate. I believe that her lack of these traits are due to her father's genetics. It needs to be said, though, that she's always been like this. I was very excited to be a mother when I first fell pregnant, and I was even more excited the day she was born. All my life, I've always wanted a child. I would read parenting books in my spare time. I spoiled my daughter, yes, in an attempt to make her love me. But I'm not the reason she's a bad person. That's all on her. I never thought I'd be the kind of mother who didn't like her own child, but hey, here I am. She's just so difficult to deal with, and I don't know how to handle it. I think that's why anger feels so much more natural than pity. Once my daughter got back into contact with her father, I had something of a breakdown. I don't have much family, and the fact that my own daughter, who I raised and loved, would choose the man who used to beat me in front of her crib over me, well, it didn't do me any good whatsoever. I had to start going to therapy, and my therapist has helped me to really detach myself from my daughter's life. When she used to ignore my text messages and phone calls, and even a few desperate emails, it felt like a knife in my heart. Now, I've learned that I owe her absolutely nothing. I did my job, my part complete. I raised her, I loved her, and I taught her right from wrong. I made sure she had clean underwear, and heck, I even brought her to the park when she was stir-crazy. I've ticked every single box in the book, and there are no more things to tick. There's no obligation left that I haven't completed. Yeah, it did take me a long time to realize this. I just felt that it would always be my responsibility to take care of her. But my therapist helped me realize that she doesn't want my help. She's proven it time and time again, and she screamed it from the rooftops. I just wasn't listening. Well, now I've got the message loud and clear. She wanted to be independent, and I'm leaving her to learn from her own mistakes. It took a long time to get this place mentally, and I know without a doubt, if I allowed her back into my home, back into my head, it would undo all the hard work that I've done over the years. See, I'm saying all this, but as I read it back before posting, it seems like I'm trying to justify myself to whatever imaginary viewer that is reading this. I don't believe any of the words I'm saying here. I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not a bad mom just as much as I'm trying to convince the rest of you. I feel guilty for not liking my own daughter, but I can't help how I feel. I love her because, well, she's my child, but I don't like her as a person. It's a terrible feeling, and I don't know how to fix it. Anyways, that's it for the most recent update on how things are going. I said no, and I'm sticking with it. I'll let you guys know if anything else happens, or if I magically change my mind. Update 3, a few months later. So, I've made a new discovery that I thought my audience might enjoy. Turns out my daughter already asked her father for help. I know this may not seem like a surprise to you guys, as I've made it very clear that my daughter has no love for me. And coming to me was her very last option, but I'm not surprised by it either. I'm not even surprised that he let her down. Apparently, she asked him weeks ago to borrow some money, and he went ahead and blocked her number. This, too, is not a surprise. Or to anyone who knows my ex-husband, he's a disgustingly selfish human being who has no love or affection for anyone but himself. I wouldn't put anything past him. He's real, truly, completely disgusting human being. What is surprising to me, though, is the reason my ex-husband refused to give our daughter money or even talk to her to stay with him just for a couple weeks. Apparently, my daughter has graduated from being just an all-around selfish person who's uncomfortable being around to a drug addict. Yeah, that's right. It turns out that the information my daughter fed me when she wanted something from me was a complete and utter lie. The story that she spun about getting evicted was true, but she didn't bother to tell me the reason her landlord wanted her out of his property. My daughter had turned her home into a bit of a hangout for all the local junkies. They would all congregate in her home, smoke, shoot up drugs, and, well, get high. From what I understood, there was several noise complaints from neighbors before the landlord even bothered to check what the heck's going on, and by the time he did, the place was an absolute disaster. Now, my source is not the most reliable thing ever. I've overheard two women in the grocery store gossiping, and once my daughter's name was brought up, I stood still and listened to what they were saying. They seemed to think that my daughter was the ringleader of the entire thing, and placed the blame solely on her. This annoyed me a bit, as it did feel like they were inadvertently calling me a bad parent, but I think that has to do more with my own issues than the actual words that they said. To be completely honest with you, I'm not surprised by the news. I had long since found out that my daughter took part in the recreational drug use. She was always a free spirit, and I found her once drunk as a skunk at age 14, stumbling home from school where her friends snuck some vodka in on the school bus. She's never been very careful with substances, even though I warned her about her father's addiction issues. She's never paid any attention, and I've known that she's done some drugs regularly for the past few years. She was smoking marijuana even before she left home. What's new to me, though, is that she's now doing hardcore drugs. That was always her father's vice as well, and I always thought that she would be too smart to get involved in that kind of thing. I always thought that she had a good head on her shoulders, no matter how difficult our relationship was. It appears I was wrong. I don't doubt that it was her father's influence that got her into this kind of thing. I bet that she started messing around with the hardcore drugs right after he came back into her life. That's what he does. He blazes into your life, wrecks everything you have going, and disappears into the night. He leaves you to pick up the pieces and explain to your baby why the father doesn't want to see them. Apparently, the reason her father's not helping her through this, though, is that his latest girlfriend's recently given birth to a new baby, and he's trying to clean up his act and be a good father. Here's the obligatory thank you paragraph for everyone who's replied to this post, even upvoted it, heck, given me rewards and all that cool stuff. A few kind people have sent me private messages too, so I just want to give them a quick shout out. I really do not know how I would make sense of everything that's going on without all your support. Thank you so much. I think I'm done with the updates. So, I just have one question for you guys. If you were in OP's position and your daughter came back basically begging to stay with you, and you just knew that she was nothing but problem after problem, and it would be horrible for your mental health, what would you do? Would you let her stay, or tell her that she's not welcome here? Guys, drop your comments down below. Let's talk about it in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Mr. Reddito. I read stories every single day. If that's something you're into, consider stopping by, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you guys tomorrow.